everyone, and welcome back to the F2 show by Inside F2. It's our final podcast of the season, so we thought we'd get the A-listers out for this one. Alex Brundle, Chris McCarthy with us. How are we, chaps? Ready for a break, I expect, Alex? We've just been speaking pre-show about that, haven't we?
Well, get the A-listers out and me. I mean, it's cool to have Chris McCarthy on. I'm great, thank you. I'm great. And yeah, I'm looking forward to a bit of a break. It's been a full-on year. It's been a great year of Formula 2. Incredibly interesting season, and a worthy champion, I think. And interesting races all throughout the year.
Definitely, we're going to get on to all of that shortly. Chris, all good and ready for a break as well. I expect you've had a busy season with Formula 2, Formula 3 and FRECA, so busy year, right?
Yeah, I mean, similar to Alex, really. It's been really good to follow all those championships throughout the season, particularly Formula 2. And yeah, I mean, what an amazing season. One of the best, I think, the championships ever had. But yeah, definitely ready for a bit of a break. But then it will be counting down the days till pre-season testing, I think.
A break? You guys don't get a break. We're straight back into it after the new year, aren't we? So let's get into it then. A record-breaking season, as we've said. 18 different winners, which is the most ever. 19 different drivers on the podium. Every single team won a race for the first time ever. All of those stats absolutely crazy. It shows how competitive it's been this season in Formula 2. I haven't had a few weeks to digest it all, Alex. What were your reflections on Formula 2 in 2024?
I think that there are several interesting factors. I mean, the dominant one for me, really, which marks this year out in comparison to other years I've seen, is there were no real backmarker teams this year, and I think that's reflected in the stats that you just read out. You know, teams that previously you would have said, you know, a driver moving into that maybe in their first year have a very little chance of achieving a podium or even a win. I'm not gonna name those teams because I think we all know who we might be or might not be talking about. But even in those enterprises, because of the changes to regulations and so on and so forth, gave drivers the opportunity to win not just sprint races, but also feature races. You know, 1 week after another, they'd be qualifying right at the front of the field and then have the race pace. Whereas in years gone by, we'd see a team like Prema as the only team able to achieve that, or, you know, the team that are now called Invicta in one of their previous guises, as the only team that were able to do that week in, week out. That dominance hierarchy's just not been there this year.
Yeah, it's definitely mixed things up, isn't it? Chris, were you surprised that we saw that many different winning teams and winning drivers this season?
Absolutely. I mean, with the new car coming in, I think everyone knew there might have been an element of unpredictability. But we would have all put our money on those teams that Alex was mentioning, the real experienced championship winning teams to be the quickest out of the blocks in getting their heads around it, really. But it was the perfect thing to do to the championship. It is giving it a massive shake-up, if you like. It put everyone on a completely level playing field and gave us some really surprising results throughout. AIX Racing, where Joshua Dirkson's campaign stood out to me as one of the stories of the season, really. And I think that all of that came with this new car coming in. Teams got their heads around it a little bit quicker than others, and it just threw everything up, really, sort of tore the form book apart. So, it just made it very exciting. Every race you went into, you really didn't know who was going to be in the top 10. Usually it was trying to get on the front row, and in F2 it was all about getting in the top 10 for qualifying, and championship competitors did miss out on that from time to time.
Yeah, Alex, what do you think the new car impacted the variability of the number of winners and the competitiveness of the season? And reflecting on the new car, has it done its job this season?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think that there are teams. Prema were one of them that really struggled with the car at the beginning of the year, and it was almost the teams that struggled with the car at various points, which actually left the opportunities to have such variability in the results. I'm thinking of both Camposes in the wall, for example, when they looked so quick back in Baku. I'm thinking of Prema, both Bman and Antonelli struggling at the beginning of the year. Has the new car done its job? yes. I'd love to see some more reliability in it into next year. There have been a couple of moments where, I think drivers have lost, results that could have affected their careers quite positively with moments of unreliability. I'm sure that will improve into next year. But, in terms of the performance of the car and allowing great racing, I mean, case in point, right? You turn on a Formula 2 race, it's a 90%er that there's going to be some good racing on track.
Definitely. When you talk about reliability, the car, the engine, or both?
I think you got to say more on the engine side. There have been a lot of technical issues this year. They're very powerful engines. They're very powerful engines delivered at a cost. So there's a huge challenge to achieving that. I mean, I've driven a derivative of the modern Formula 2 engine in an LMP car. It's a complex thing to be able to deliver an engine spec to a price across the full season that has 100% reliability. I'd say 100% reliability is impossible throughout a year. That being said, it's a shame, isn't it, when we see young drivers on the side of the road with engine issues.
Yeah, no, it really is. Hopefully that improves for next season. Let's talk about our champion then, Gabriele Bortoleto, back-to-back Formula 3, Formula 2 champion. He rocks up, he wins it, and he carries on, Chris. How impressive was his season this year? And where does it, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, where does it rank with Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Oscar Piastri, who have done the same?
It's certainly right up there, isn't it? I mean, coming in to Formula 3, did what he did, got wins early on, and then kind of controlled the championship from there in what was still a chase at the end. This one was very different. The start to his season was very difficult, and everyone was looking towards Paul Aron as the driver that was going to possibly go and win the championship, or we had him down as the favourite, Zane Maloney as well, two drivers who are carrying experience. But Bortoleto has always been known for his consistency in qualifying and in point scoring, and that's been throughout his F4 career, his FRECA career, and his F3 career as well. And I think that is what ultimately drove him to the title. It wasn't the winning performances, it was the P5s, the P4s, kind of the green boxes, if you like, all sort of scattered all the way through, keeping it out the wall. It led obviously to an incredibly close fight at the end, but another great qualifying performance. His sprint race performance as well was very, very good, and I think that's probably what took him over the line in the end. But it definitely ranks very high for me. He's changed his whole career, and this season combined with last has made him a Formula 1 driver.
Yeah, definitely. We'll talk about him in Formula 1 in a minute. Alex, you said pre-season, I don't know if you remember this, on this very podcast, this is the type of championship where someone's going to turn up from nowhere and win it because it's going to be super, super competitive. Spot on. That's why they pay them the big bucks, isn't it?
That's why they should. That's why they should pay them the big bucks.
Yeah. I love it.
Hold on, no, just screen record that.
Yeah, Formula 2, you know what to do. No, Gabriele Bortoleto did essentially do that, didn't he? He was a little bit quiet in the first half of the season. Obviously, stuck it on pole in Bahrain after Kushmani's penalty, and then had a few difficult rounds. And then after Austria, when he won his first feature race, he just took off, didn't he?
I remember saying such a similar group of things about Oscar Piastri when he made his way through, discussing consistency and everything. It's the copy paste way. It's the textbook way of how to do what Gabriele Bortoletto's done this year, which is, and I think he's a similar character in some ways. Extremely matter of fact, quite quiet. Speaks in brief facts only. And has that kind of consistent, okay, if I don't win today, I'll win tomorrow. If I don't win tomorrow, I'll win the next day. And I tell you what, if I don't win all year, I'll just get more points than everyone else. And it's just a continuous movement forward through the series while racking up the points without ever allowing, let's face it, the madness of some of the things that happen in Formula 2 to affect his performance. Most evident at the end of the year in Abu Dhabi, when you listen to their interviews before the final race of the year, both he and Isaac Hadjar, and how Invicta, who I think are also a big part of that mentality, and Bortoleto were going about it. The calmness was incredibly evident. I really hope next year he doesn't get forgotten behind the wheel of a Sauber, which might not be exactly as good as it should be. And indeed, Fernando Alonso said exactly that, hasn't he? Everybody needs to remember how good Gabriel Bortoleto is, because next year the car might not be the car he needs.
He's got a good benchmark in Nico Hulkenberg, though, Chris. And how's he going to do in Formula 1 next season, in your opinion? You've seen him all the way through. Excited to see him in Formula 1.
Very excited. I got to know him quite well doing FIA. I think he made very good decision to stay for a second season in that championship, because he raced for FA Racing, of course, Fernando Alonso's team, and then did a second season with RSGP. And at that point, no one would have had him down as an F3 and F2 champion, because he was about 5th in the championship that season. But it just, I think him and that car didn't quite gel. But as soon as he got in the F3 car, the second year is what really did well for him, because of how consistent he was. I think he did 38 top 10s qualifying in 2 seasons. So, but yeah, I think I think that is what he'll do very well. And what Alex is saying is exactly how I found him in the FIA paddock. After a bad result, he was very, very calm about it, could always think a race ahead. And, he was a great person to interview because of that as well. He would always tell you, even when the camera was down, it's okay, we'll go again tomorrow. And he was very excited when he got the F3 signing. So I can't imagine how he is now, to be honest. So, whereas on the contrast, Isaac Hadjar is kind of win or bust mentality, which I think is quite popular in, with people watching. But yeah, they have two very contrasting figures there, and it's going to be exciting to see them race each other.
Definitely. Hadjar and Sonoda across the garage from each other. Yeah. I hope they've got volume control on the radios at VCarb or whatever we're going to call it next year. There could be just a double mute button while they all just take a break for a second. And then carry on with the race.
It's going to be unbelievable, isn't it? Just before we move on to Isaac Hadjar, Alex, Bortoleto is going to be racing against his manager, Fernando Alonso. What happens if they come together? What's the arrangement? We've never seen that before. So true.
I mean, we have, but we've seen it all throughout history that Sebastian Vettel and Mick Schumacher, and then drivers being brought for. Brazilians traditionally bring each other also and assist each other through, one after the other into the world of Formula One. There's always that moment where the understudy races the master. Lando has a little bit of a similar thing every time he races Lewis Hamilton. And all bets are off as soon as you're behind the wheel. Drivers know that as well. That's why you see world-class professional drivers crash with each other, talk it out, and carry on and race each other again the next weekend. Because if you got all emotional and hurt every time anybody ever went up the inside of you in turn one, you'd spend your whole career emotional and hurt.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's part of me thinks, it's Fernando Alonso. He's ruthless. He'll, tiny bit of contact and he'll sack him from his management company. But no, you're right. They've got to separate the personal, or I guess, professional and racing relationship, right? So we touched on Isaac Hadjar there. Let's talk about him. Obviously, the closest competitor to Gabriel Bortoleto this season. 4 wins this year, the most wins out of any driver. Will the fact that he's been announced in Formula One for next season take the sting off of Abu Dhabi a little bit, Chris?
I think it was well deserved that his performance throughout both seasons he's done in Formula 2 have been fantastic. He's come up the ranks very, very quickly. He was a FIA rookie champion, and then was in F3. He was really impressive straight away, and then was elevated straight to F2. Obviously, last season wasn't quite where he wanted to be, but this season with Campos, he's done extremely well. And with that pressure of being a Red Bull Junior, we've seen many a Red Bull Junior in F2 not live up to that livery and often be dropped halfway through a season. So, but no, he's carried that pressure ever since FIA very, very well. And, he was half a point behind on the grid going into the last race. So I think they took all of that performance and have given him a very deserving seat. It was the wins for him that were very exciting to watch in particular.
Yeah, definitely it was, and they're all feature race wins as well,
Yeah.
which is one of the big points handed out. Alex, I was so gutted on the final day of the season, watching him stalled on the grid, and I think Gabriel Bortoleto said in the press conference maybe he was just looking for a really good launch at the start, and he's just, that's all speculation. We don't know what actually happened there, but were you as gutted? I know you would have been as gutted as I was, because you wanted a title fight as much as we did in the commentary box, right?
Yeah, we all switched on. We all switched on. I mean, even Bortoleto said, I was like looking for Isaac Hadjar behind me because I was so convinced. We were convinced in the commentary box, and I'm sure, as everybody heard,
we were.
So was I.
I'm going to use Alex Jakes' phraseology, which, as always, is better than mine. We chose our own adventure. But we were poised on the start line, waiting for them all, to happen. We've been winding ourselves up about it. We switched on, we logged on, and we were ready. And for it to end like that was just such a shame. What broke my heart even more was listening to those radio messages from Isaac Hadjar when he was like, "Can you just over?" And you could tell what he was doing. Can you just tell me that if I was still in this race, I'd be going fast enough? And it's like, oh wow, that is that's tough to listen to from but it's the pressure of the moment. What exactly went wrong? And you've got to remember as well, like, these things aren't all down to one race, right? So I believe we said it in commentary as well. There are moments all throughout the year when these drivers miss a point, don't quite make the overtake, may have a little bump on track, or don't get away, or don't quite nail the qualifying lap, that costs a similar amount of points to that. And so, although it seems like it's been won and lost in a last gasp finale off the line in such a way, sometimes the damage is done beforehand.
Yeah, tough for Isaac Hadjar, but I'm sure when he's in Formula 1 next year, he won't be thinking about that. It'll be competitive in Formula 1. The other driver, I guess, that stood out, Chris, was Paul Aron. Obviously, great rookie campaign. I don't want to sound too harsh on Paul Aron, but did he take too long to win his first race? Obviously, 4 pole positions, amazing one-lap pace throughout particularly at the start of the season, but then didn't win until the penultimate round of the season. Is that perhaps what cost him a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. Because in other championships, I've seen him win and then go on winning records. Actually, he held the winning record in Freca until this season. So he is a driver that has wins in him. We've all seen that. And I think if he got a win in early on, it might have been a different pathway for him. And I think you could see watching it was the pressure of not having that win. Things just started to unravel halfway through the season. Then maybe mistakes came in from him, and all of a sudden he found himself chasing where he was once leading. I think if he got a win under his belt, his confidence levels would have gone up even higher, and it could have been a different season for him. So he came very close to it, but it was nice to see that he did get one in there at the end. Yeah,
definitely. Alex, 4 drivers obviously graduating to Formula 1. He's not one of them, but how would you review his season? Will you look back and think, as you said with Isaac Hadjar, I guess, and all of those drivers, there's always points in the season, right, where it could have gone differently?
Well, he is in a way. I mean, because he's found himself a reserve berth at Alpine. When you look, for example, at the position that Oscar Piastri was able to take after winning the Formula 2 championship, it's not too dissimilar. So he can't be that unhappy with how it's worked out. I think he's got every chance of finding himself behind the wheel of a Formula 1 car in the future. He's got to now just completely focus on doing that role to the best of his ability, and hope that there is a gap arises at Alpine. He'll be watching the performance of Jack Doohan very closely, and any other driver movements. I think he's shown a lot throughout this year, Paul Aron. He's got a great connection there, specifically with Olly Oakes. I think it was very fortunate the movement of Olly from high tech through to Alpine alongside Flavio Briatore. That's opened the door, and then Aaron's given performances that are good enough to warrant walking through it. He's got to dot the I's and cross the T's in the simulator, in the garage, and in any FP1s or testing that he gets. And that then hopefully will put him in the best position if there are driver movements into the regulation change in 26 to give him the opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. Two drivers who are going to be in Formula One next season, Olly Bman, Kimmy Antonelli. This is unbelievable, right? They're the first two drivers in Formula 2 history to graduate to Formula One having not finished in the top 5 of the championship. And you think of some of the names, there's Nicholas Latifi, Nikita Mazepin, all of those drivers who perhaps have struggled a little bit in Formula One, all finished in the top 5 of the championship. That stat blows my mind a little bit, Alex. They're better than us. Prema have struggled, haven't they? Prema have had a difficult season.
Prema have struggled, throughout this year. I'm trying to remember if Olly Bman ended up finishing previously in the top 5 of the championship in the year previous. Yeah, he was sick, wasn't he?
And Antonelli 6th this year.
Yeah, it's quite incredible that, and it's a kind of a treatise in how to demonstrate talent without actually winning all the races. Between the pair of them, they both had their moments so far this year. I mean, Antonelli doing 2 rapid laps in a Mercedes, and then having an accident back in Monza was one of the most bizarre forks in the road for the perception of a young driver, or perhaps dichotomies for the perception of a young driver I've ever seen. Half the paddock thought, oh my God, that's terrible for his reputation. The other half of the paddock thought, wow, how brilliant for his reputation. It was just a pure disconnect in whether it had gone brilliantly or terribly because of how fast he was on the one hand, but also having the accident on the other. Two clearly incredibly talented young drivers. We've seen firsthand, drivers move through. Kobayashi would be one that I would pick out. Drivers move through into a Formula One car and then do much better than anybody ever expected them to. I think that it could be the case that with all of the support behind Kimmy Antonelli, he jumps straight in and does the job next year. Same for Oliver Bman. They clearly have pace. They clearly have talent. They've got all the opportunity now. So it's going to be fascinating to see how they go.
Yeah, it will. Chris, how do you think Kimmy Antonelli obviously fast-tracked through to Formula 2 this season? Do you think he'll have a bit of time to sit down over the winter and actually gather his thoughts a little bit before he goes into Formula One? Because it has been a bit of a whirlwind. I remember us speaking about it was just after the Hockenheim race, the last race of the season in Frecker, and then he was announced as a Formula 2 driver, and it just seems like it's all happened so quickly.
Yeah. And he's had a very busy schedule doing Middle Eastern series all the time as well, which a lot of the drivers do. So his winter break has been non-existent for about the last 4 years because he's often been out there, and that's been a case of getting the super license points and championship titles. So, I think he will. It'll be the first time he actually has a really long run into a season where he can prepare for that season now without doing another championship at the same time. So he'll be a lot of time in the sim. I think personally he's been very impressive this season. He certainly stood out, for a driver to come straight through into a brand new car as well and get their head around it. He convincingly beat Olly Bman. Of course, Olly didn't do a couple of rounds, but Kimmy didn't do the final round either. And to get those wins when he did, those were the big moments. His drive at Silverstone was absolutely fantastic, and that was sort of stapled into the ground that this kid does belong to Formula One. This is going to be his route now. And then he followed it up with a really well executed feature race win. So those 2 weekends combined were just a big turning point, and I think he's going to do very, very well.
Yeah, definitely. I think Silverstone was that standout moment, wasn't it? Like Charles Leclerc, Bahrain, sprint race 2017, and there was a couple of moments where Oscar Piastri, George Russell, those kind of moments, that felt like one of those, didn't it, at Silverstone this year. Teams champions, Invicta, obviously first time they've won the championship in the modern era, just ahead of Campos as well, and Campos only had 4 wins going into this season, which I guess they were a bit of a surprise candidate for the teams championship. But Alex, do you think we're going to see the big teams, Prema, ART, do you think they're going to return to the front next season, or do you think we're still going to have a bit of a mixed up grid?
I mean, struggles for various teams left the door open a little bit. ART didn't quite have the performance I think that they probably would have been expecting from their drivers. It must be said throughout certain phases of this year, especially returning as favourites and then not necessarily delivering in the way one might have expected. Prema didn't really put the car underneath their 2 drivers. Invicta have always been a force, and kind of Norfolk's incredibly proud of them for that. Whether they are, whatever guys that team have been in, they've been always great at getting the most out of the car over a racing stint. I remember over the years, you can always kind of plot the second phase of an Invicta stint before the pit stop, and they're always gathering time there. They're very good at supporting their drivers, very good at, as we've discussed, getting their drivers in the right mindset and choosing who they're going to run. So I'm more surprised that they hadn't taken that team's championship victory than that they now have, to be honest. I think Campos will wonder what might have been if they hadn't made a couple of key errors throughout the year. I mean, poor Pepe Marti had a lot of misfortune as well throughout this season. I believe I'm right in saying he's a driver that retired more than any other this year. So, and a lot of those retirements were taken out in first corners or technicals or so on and so forth. So, yeah, it's a bit of a shame for them, and they'll consider that a missed opportunity. But those 2 teams are staples of feeder series racing. I remember pounding around in a Campos Euro F3 Open car back in the early 2010s. So they've been around, and it's not surprising that they're doing a great job.
Yeah, definitely. Look forward to seeing Arvid Lindblad join Pepe Marti next season in Campos, see if they can fight for the title again. Just going to some quickish fire questions before we wrap up, Chris. Who surprised you the most this season? Was there a team or a driver that caught your attention?
Yeah, well, I think I've probably mentioned it already. Joshua Dirksen for me at AIX Racing. He was the other driver that parachuted straight up to F2. Along with Kimmy Antonelli, and a lot of people, given his results in FRECA, he was very much middle of the road in FRECA. He was with a team that were struggling, that have since left the championship. So it was maybe a bit unreflective of his overall performance. But I saw him overtake 17 cars at Zandvoort in one race there. So I knew he had the talent within him. But yeah, how well he did with AIX Racing, the pace he had in the car, and doing that for Paraguay as well was really, really good. I know the president went to visit him at testing. And that's been a massive thing. You could just see the amount of following he's had, the amount of support he's had for his country. And hopefully for him now, there's going to be more motorsport activity in Paraguay because of what he's done in Formula 2. So, I think that's been a real good story for him and the championship.
Alex, anyone else that surprised you? And I guess on AIX as well. Sorry, just we've seen Antonelli and Dirksen jump Formula 3 into Formula 2. We're going to see John Bennett do the same next season. Is there a little bit of a risk there with Formula 3 that some more drivers might start doing the same? And what impact will that have on Formula 3?
I think there is a risk. I think Dirksen's done a great job this year, especially towards the second phase of the year. What I would say, though, which is my takeaway, and we always have a recency bias with these kind of things to a certain degree, is I think the crop of youngsters that jumped up and filled the end of season gap this year, where some drivers move away, some drivers go and begin to take their professional seats in other places, or decide to go in a different direction. Drivers who jumped in mid-year or late year, Bogdanovich, Goethe, and indeed Bennett, who did a great job, I thought, when he jumped in at the end of the year, have been better than I've ever seen before immediately. Even, drivers like Christian Mansell jumps in, and in his first weekend, he's leading the race. Yeah. It's like, whoa, okay. And I think actually the counter argument is a lot of those drivers have moved through for Formula 3. You could easily make the argument that Formula 3 is preparing drivers better than it ever has for the next level of Formula 2 based around those performances.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Sorry, I've asked you two questions at the same time. Was there anyone that surprised you? AOX, Josh Dirksen obviously did a great job, didn't he?
Yeah, Josh Dirksen did surprise me. And honestly, I think when you look at his performances in the middle of the year, and I had to take to his racing record and go and see how he'd done in previous years, and was annoyed with myself for not knowing enough about it. But Paul Aaron surprised me in the middle of the year, his performance when he took the lead of the series. So he would be a standout through that phase. Dirksen, I think, has been the big surprise. AIX in general, their upturn in form has been a surprise as well.
Yeah, definitely. AIX have been brilliant compared to, well, obviously didn't score a point last season, so to get a couple of wins, 3 wins in total is really good season for them. Chris, was there anyone? I always hate this question, but is there anyone that's perhaps been a little bit underwhelming in comparison to their potential? How good we know they could be?
I think Pepe Marti was definitely, I know we've spoken about him already, but he was the driver that I think we were going to see do better. Another you could look to is Dennis Hauger, was just never really in the running for whatever reason. So he's now obviously going to go and race stateside in Indy next. So, Dennis Hauger just never really got going in the championship. Many labelled him, he was coming in with the most experience. It was, I guess, labelled by many fans as his last real go at it. To see no longer with the Red Bull livery on the car, or any kind of branding. Will that take the pressure off his shoulders, and will he now finally go and win this championship? And it just never really got going, to be honest. So, and he was, of course, had his seat filled later in the season. So, but he's going to, I think, do a great job in Indy next. Obviously, Kaya Collett did a really good job in that this year. So I look forward to that battle between them two, and Sophia Flörsch also joining it as well.
Yeah, definitely. No, best of luck to Dennis Hauger. Alex, any underwhelming drivers, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, we try and be in their corner, don't we, at this level? I think, I don't know what happened with Victor Martins at the beginning of this year. I was, because he came back into form, and by the end of the year, he was his brilliant best again. But the beginning of the year, it wasn't working out for Victor Martins. It was always going to be a big step for Rotoma Miata. But, if you put the two cars, to take Super GT out of it, if you put a Super Formula car and then a Formula 2 car side by side and said, he was champion in that one, and now he's going to race that one, you'd be like, well, he's going to be champion in that one as well, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But it didn't work like that. And he'll be back, and I think that he'll be much stronger. And it does just show you. I mean, we talk about it so much in commentary, the specificity of racing in this paddock at this level. I'm not saying it's harder. I'm not sure if it even is harder. It's just different. That, getting their head around the tyre, the format of racing, and he struggled with that at certain times this year. I'm really excited to see what he can do next year.
Yeah, definitely. He should go well in an ART next season, shouldn't he? So, Chris, is there a standout race, a race that you saw this season and you were like, yeah, that was good. That was good.
Well, that's a good question. I'm trying to think back now. Any of the ones I got to do, I guess, were really good. I remember Imola was great. I mean, that was obviously when we had Dirksen out on the podium and didn't quite want to leave. I think Franco Colapinto's move around the outside to take the win from Paul Aron on the last lap was sensational, and that was then a big moment for him that everyone was resharing when he went through to get into Formula One, and he became the first Argentinian driver on the top step as well in FIA Formula 2. So yeah, for me, I'd probably pick that one out and be a little bit selfish to say I was in the box alongside Alex when it happened, and it was a really good moment.
Yeah, a great job by you both as well. Alex, stand-up race or stand-up moment maybe if you can't think of a race?
Bortoletto last to first in Monza.
Yeah,
it's one of those. I mean, there are a couple like Zach O'Sullivan, or just it's selfishly from a commentary point of view. Zach O'Sullivan just coming from nowhere to win, which he did on several occasions this year, was peak Formula 2. It's one of those where it's like, yeah, anywhere else I would not really accept that happening. We couldn't have written everything but the last race any better this year. Yeah. But yeah, Bortoletto last to first in Monza, like it was, some sort of Gran Turismo challenge, was just mega.
Yeah, unbelievable that, wasn't it? So, and as we said with Antonelli at Silverstone, that's one of those moments as well for Bortoletto, isn't it? And they'll be playing that one in the highlights reel when he's in Formula One. And last one from me is, I've lost my notes. Last one from me is, your favourite for next season, Chris, is obviously we haven't had everyone announced yet, but looking at the grid as it looks like at the moment, maybe a few. I think testing is going to be roughly the grid, isn't it? Who's your favourite for next season? Who's your pick?
It's a hard one actually to pick a favourite. I'm quite excited to see what Pepe Marti can do if his confidence hasn't been damaged too much. I think as a second-year driver in F3, he went on a championship run, so I don't see why that shouldn't repeat itself in Formula 2, and he's going to have Arvid Lindblad alongside. So they're exciting. Dino Beganovic looked very fast in testing as well, and very fast at the end of the season. And you've got to remember, he is a champion as well in FRECA, so and beat a lot of those drivers. But I'll go for Gabriele Mini, just because of how he missed out on the F3 championship. He's gone in with Prema. He looked very good on the weekend. He's looked good in testing, so I'll go for him. I think he's going to be definitely one to watch because he just missed out on a title. So and I've never known him not to be in a title race really. So I think we'll see him in there.
Yeah, no, good pick, Brundle.
I'm just looking. I'm looking down the list here and thinking it through. I'm interested to see what Beganovic can do. And I think that High-Tech needs to try and put the car underneath him. It'll be interesting to see what kind of car they've got next year. And yeah, Mini is never one to count out. So Beganovic and Mini definitely in there. Fornaroli, it'll be interesting to see how well he takes to the next stage. Browning is also going to be in the hunt with a little bit more experience this year. I tend to agree with you, Chris. I think Gabriele Mini is a good favourite. But honestly, yeah, I mean, we were here last year. Talking about how Oliver Bman was going to win the championship by, mid-season, and that's the nature of the beast in Formula 2.
Yeah, definitely. No, it'd be interesting to see how we do next season. But it's funny how we start talking about next season when the year of 2024 hasn't even finished. So let's have a bit of a break before we start discussing that in depth. I do want, though, if you don't mind, a quick word on your friend Alex Jakes, obviously departing Formula 2 as a commentator. You guys both know how difficult that job is and how brilliant he's been over the last 10 years or so. So yeah, just a quick word. Alex, we'll start with you if that's all right. Your tribute in commentary at the in Abu Dhabi was lovely. It was really nice.
Yeah, I mean, I was massively spoiled and massively lucky, to be honest, that I sat down in the comm box. I looked left, and the bloke sitting there was Alex Jakes, because I would have made a lot of other key errors. that Jake's just smoothed over like a cement mixer in my very early days of Formula 2 commentary. He's got a way of doing that without letting anybody else know you've messed up, and so it was in a way like co-commentary with training wheels, because he was so good to work with. Always got a word. He's a master of the craft, a real master of the craft. It's been a pleasure to share the commentary box with him, and I always think I've learned from him that the only way to effectively do the job he's doing is to genuinely care about each and every one of the sports people that you're looking at in your tenure in the job. Genuinely really care about their prospects, about their lives, and there are several key moments where that's been abundantly clear over commentary when you hear him in audio only, but when you stand next to him, that's clear all the time. He really cares about Formula racing, motorsport in general, but especially Formula 2. It's been a pleasure to work with him, but it's going to be a pleasure to do whatever's next. And, I'm really looking forward to carrying on calling the championship, and it's I love the gig. I love the gig of calling Formula 2 racing, and I can't wait to see what comes next.
Yeah, and we love listening to you in the box as well, and that passion really does come through the TV. Chris, little word on Alex. I know you've learnt a lot from him, haven't you, in your time in commentary?
Yeah, I have. It started really before I knew him. When he took that Formula 2 job, I was just starting out doing all of this. And I was. I even said to him the other night, I actually wanted that. Like when Will was stepping down, I'd only done about a year of commentary. And I was like, I really want to be the next person. And then Alex got it, and but I just spent all of those years listening to Alex Jakes and Alex Brundle, and really began to look up to him, and the work he did was absolutely fantastic. Listening to F2 and F3, and then getting to know him later down the line has been a real privilege. When I have stepped in for him, he's been incredibly helpful in giving me everything I need, giving me feedback, making sure I'm ready. But just in general has really helped me personally to get to where I am now. So I couldn't be more grateful for how he is. And I think, like Alex says, when you meet him, you really see the passion that he has for Formula 2, Formula 3 championships, and he absolutely loves it. So he's a great guy when you have that same passion to chat with, just as a fan, really. So he's brought some of the best moments when you look back through the highlight reel to life, but then also carried us through some of the toughest times the championship faced, and did that with great dignity, I think, as well. So he's been a real great asset to the championship, and it will be quite strange, I think, to not have him there.
Yeah, no, it will be next season. But we've got a special tribute podcast coming out to Alex and the great job he's done in Formula 2 over the last 10 years. That's coming out over the next few days. So, as always, make sure you're subscribed and got your notifications on to see that, because it is a really nice... I sat down with Alex and we spoke for a good 45 minutes, and it is a really nice little chat to talk about his career and some of his favourite moments in the series. So, keep an eye out for that. Chaps, just before we go then, Alex, I know it's been your first year of Brundle Motorsport, hasn't it? The historic racing project. You got a little Christmas newsletter coming out, haven't you? Tell everyone about that.
It's been a great year, actually. Now I'm doing a bit more broadcasting. I love to stay on track. I like my historic race cars. So I started off driving them for other people, and then I put one together, and then I put another one together, and then for my sins I ended up putting another one together, and I thought, well, that looks a whole lot like a race team to me. So I've been inviting various nutcases to come and try not to bump them into things, which luckily they have throughout this year. Sponsors and partners from my racing career previously, and also some new ones as well. But honestly, we've had great fun this year, going sideways throughout the season in various, and it's kept me sane, going sideways in some historic stuff. So first year of that, I think 17 million people watched us at some point throughout the year on our various feeds. So yeah, we'll go again next year and see if we can top that and take some more trophies home. Got a couple of podiums as well. It was good.
Definitely, we'll put a little link to that below as well, so that people can check it out. And definitely do go and check it out because it's really cool. Chris, when do we find out your 2025 plans? Would that be early in the new year?
Yeah, hopefully, that should be the time where it all comes out. It's going to be definitely a busy year. Hope to be back doing FRECA as well as the F1 support stuff and Le Mans again. I mean, that's always really such a cool event over there with Alex this year, and I hope to be back there again next year as well. So it's going to be definitely another very exciting year. With very good grids coming out across Formula 2 and Formula 3. So I'm very excited to see how it all unfolds.
Yeah,
busy weekend, Le Mans. Seems to go on all day, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I'm in there all day, so doing the circuit commentary. We
it's a 24-hour race, isn't it? It's,
yeah.
When does this thing stop? Oh, tomorrow.
But doing that is it's a sensational atmosphere. So you have to go if you haven't been. It's one of those experiences.
Good stuff. We look forward to hearing you in the comms box next season as well. That's all we got time for today. Just before we go, a quick plug from us. We've been shortlisted for an award, which is cool. The Best Motorsport Podcast. Thank you, Alex. Best Motorsport Podcast at the Sports Podcast Awards. We're up against some pretty amazing podcasts. Sky Sports F1 Podcast, BBC Checkered Flag, Fast and the Curious. So it's going to be tough going, so we need your support. So we'll put the link in the comments below. If you do have a spare couple of minutes, we'd be really grateful if you could go and vote for us. We've hit 200,000 subscribers this year, which is crazy. It's blows my little mind, that does. We've got 200,000 subscribers this year. But if we could end the year on a high by winning that award as well, then that we'd be really grateful. So go and check out that in the comments below. But Alex, Chris, thank you very much for coming on the show today. We look forward to hearing you guys next season. But that is it for Formula 2 in 2024. From myself and from all of us here at Inside F2, wishing you a very Merry Christmas, and we'll see you in 2025.